Hey everybody, welcome to today's customer success webinar. This is Darren with Komprise. I'm here with Jeremy Estey, who's our product manager for the area that we're going to be talking about, which is deep analytics and tagging. Might also weave in a little bit of reporting into the session. So a couple of housekeeping items for folks who are joining this customer success series for the first time. First of all, you can go and watch all of these talks on our website under komprise.com/techcrunch. But a couple of things people have pointed out. One is there's a little settings button at the bottom right in BrightTalk, and you can adjust your settings if the screen's a little bit blurry. Hopefully it's not. Also, we're going to use the poll questions, a couple of questions we want to ask you about deep analytics, both your use cases and roadmaps. So please make this interactive, put in your questions. We'll try to get to them as often as we can. And it looks like we already got a question. Yes, all these sessions will be recorded and shared. So, all right, welcome. Here we go. So the agenda today, we'll talk a little bit about our 6.0 release, and which really highlighted sensitive data management. And then we'll spend most of the time in demonstrations of deep analytics use cases with Jeremy running that show. And then we'll wrap with some best practices and roadmap. So just a quick reminder for all of you Komprise customers and partners out there. You should know by now that the 6 release is generally available. And on the marketing front, we did a lot of promotion of the sensitive data management capabilities that are now included with smart data workflows. So this is available to full platform customers. And it's something that you would contact your account team. We'll enable that for you and work with you on getting that all set up. So definitely check out the documentation. We did a customer success webinar on smart data workflows and sensitive data management recently. So I do recommend you have a look at that. And there's a number of other updates in the 6.0 release, and a couple of them we'll talk about here today. So Jeremy, before we dive into what's new in these use cases, I just wanted to level set for everybody. Some of you, I think most of you, are already using deep analytics. It's really the sort of fastest growing area of the product line. And it's what enables you to search and find data, really specific subsets of data across your different storage silos. So it's really like a scalpel. It's a magnifying glass to let you get surgical and find just what you need. And then not only get visibility, but take action on the data. And you're going to see in this demonstration how you can use these queries in your plans, in your workflows, and eventually in some other areas of the product that Jeremy will talk about. Also, some of the new Komprise reports, like orphan data and potential duplicates, do require deep analytics. And as I mentioned, it's available at the full platform. So why don't I hand it over to you, Jeremy, to tell us about what we're going to cover today, and then we'll dive right in.
Sure. So thanks, Darren. We'll talk about the deep analytics user role in tagging. I'll show you the new landing page. But we're really going to dive into a use case of how I, as an IT admin, can use my counterpart, my deep analytics user, who might be a researcher or a line of business user, to help the organization save money by implementing a chargeback model and then letting my end users tag data which they want to be archived, which will automatically then be archived by the plan. So yeah, based on that, I'll show you a couple other use cases, and we'll go from there.
And as you're there's a new area that you wanted to talk about before you go into the demonstration. But as you're doing that, I want to let people know I've launched the first poll question. So for those of you who are watching live today, what are your current deep analytics use cases? Some options: answering ad hoc questions about my data across storage silos, finding files for end users, providing my end users with self-service for data management, query-driven plans, identifying cold data. So those are some of your options. Let us know. All right, so tell us about this new landing page.
So we've created a new landing page, which looks a little similar to some of the other landing pages for migration, recall, etc. Rather than putting the user on a query that they didn't choose, we're letting you pick now. So you can see all of your queries other people's queries that are public and filter however you need, and also search. You can your list of queries will tell you what the filters are in each query, so that you can take actions, download a PDF or copy the query, do a lot of things without having to run the query and wait for the results to come back.
Awesome. All right, let's show it all. Let's get into your scenario and get going on deep analytics. Just a reminder, if people are just joining, do take a second to fill out the poll question and put in any questions you have into the chat panels.
All right. So here, I'm an admin. I can see all of these tabs, and I'll start with a quick overview of the Deep Analytics landing page. I have my user query section, this is essentially the same as the pop-up you would see when you change your query from the query page in Deep Analytics. And I also have a system queries section, which is where any queries that I add to a plan or to a workflow, or in the future to a recall, will appear there. But my user queries are my main queries. And from here, I have access to my tag manager, where I can see my tags or any tagging jobs. And I can also take actions on all of these queries. So in this case, I'll just quickly show the tags that I already have. I have an archive group 1 tag, and I'm going to add that to a plan later on. So I'm going to create a query. I'm just going to pick that tag, archive group 1. And I'm going to save this query as archive group 1 and save it as public so others can see it. Now I'm going to go enact my data savings plan. So in my plan, I've already created my group. I already have one policy, which is move files accessed after move files that have been accessed more than 2 years ago. And I'm going to be able to edit this and add another query. So I'm going to add my Deep Analytics query. I'm going to say archive group 1, and I'm going to save this. Now, before I activate it, I'm going to go assign some access to Deep Analytics users, and now they can tag files with this tag, and they will automatically be moved by this plan. So I'll go to users. In this case, I already have created a user named Jeremy Researcher. When I edit this user, I see I have 3 possible roles: administrator, read-only, or Deep Analytics. And administrator and read-only are both global roles, but Deep Analytics, I have an option to make it global, all access, or restricted access. And with restricted access, I've already configured it to be for these 2 NetApp filers. And so these represent the filers that this user has access to, and these are the filers that are getting chargeback on, so that they're empowered to save money by tagging themselves. So now I'm going to log out, and I'll log back in as the Deep Analytics user. It was, I believe, researcher at komprise.com. So now I'm logged in as the researcher, and I have access to the same Deep Analytics tab, but it's the only tab that I can see. And there's a few private queries that the admin could see that I can't see here. In this case, all of these queries were created by the admin. But in this case, I'm going to create a query myself.
And Jeremy, it's interesting, just on the terms of the poll results. Number one was answering ad hoc questions about my data. We had a few people saying identified cold data and a few saying finding files for end users. We didn't get any responses to what you're showing now, which is providing my end users with self-service for data management. So I think this is an area for people to look at and consider.
Yeah, maybe after this, we'll have more of those. So, and we have a few customers who are using this use case already and having success with it. So I'm going to create a new query here and note how with the Deep Analytics landing page, I can edit my query as much as I need before I view the results, so I don't have to wait for any results to come back. So here I'm going to pick the shares that I have access to. And in this case, it's these two filers that I was granted access to. I might just pick one of them because in this case, I know there's some projects that have recently completed. I don't need fast access to anything in those projects. So even though their last access date is, for most of those files will be less than 2 years ago, I know I can archive them and I can save myself and the business some money. So I will, let's say, I know I can archive everything in this folder. That's all, all done with. Here, I know there's a few projects in here that I can archive. I'm still working on this design project, but everything in these I can archive. Maybe there's a few that I want to not archive. I can go as granular as I want, keep going, drilling down into these directories. And if I'm curious about what these, the information in this directory, I can always run a search myself and to see exactly what files are found here. Also, the admin can view all of the data per directory in data stores. So I can always, the admins will be able to see this information in other ways. And in the future, we want to extend that to Deep Analytics users. So I'm going to run my query, and maybe I want to add some other filters like, okay, if it was accessed in the last 30 days, then maybe make sure it was accessed at least 30 days ago, just so that there's, I'm not missing any surprisingly new data. I can also, go for specific file types, file extensions, etc. But here I'm just going to archive these projects, which I know from these directories. And I'm going to save my query as expired projects. And I can choose to make this public or private. Because I'm going to tag this query, I don't have to let anyone else see it, but I'll make it public so that the admin can view it if they want. And I'm going to save it. Now I can tag this query. So I click Apply, Remove Tags. I select Archive and Group 1. I'll apply these changes. It tells me this will tag 1 million files, which may take some time. And I'll confirm, yes, I do. And I can always check the progress of this tagging job with the tagging job screen. So if it's just started, but pretty soon it'll be complete. And then I can go ahead and create more queries. Say there's if I want to create a query for specific file extensions or any other criteria for any other directories, I can go ahead and tag those so that all of those tags are accumulated into the query that the admin has already created for that tag. So I'm just going to log out for now, because maybe I'll want to add some things later, but this is good enough for now. I can always archive more things in the future because the plan is running every week. So I'll log out as that user, and I'll log back in as the admin. So here I see with my move files by query that I can, that everything here is estimated to move. And I can see here that the criteria for that query are the tag is archive, and I've selected one value, which is group 1. So I'm going to go ahead and activate this. And here I don't have an age specification, so it's warning me, but I'm okay with that. And I can actually see these files move. So the beauty of this is that not only have I used this query to archive data, but I've also, but I can also use these queries anywhere else. So for example, I won't go too much into smart data workflows, but say I want to make sure that I scan these files for PII that are eligible to archive, or perhaps there's a different set of files that I want to scan for PII, and my end user has created a query so that I can do that. So I can go ahead, add a workflow, and I can specify data stores, or I can specify that deep analytics query. And in this case, I can choose either just that tag, which is archive group 1, or I can even pick the query that my end user created, so expired projects. And if the end user's created many queries, I can, anyone that they've made public, I can use here. So I'll just select archive group 1. It's going to be anything with that tag. And then I can create a workflow based on that. I won't go into the details of workflows, but I encourage you to watch the session from last month that Paul gave. And
I was just going to say, Jeremy, for folks who joined later in the webinar, this is now something that can be enabled for full platform customers. So contact your customer success manager, and we can talk to you about enabling the Smart Data Workflows tab. And also that would then be the PII detection and regex scanner.
So I've created a workflow based on this query, and I've created a plan based on this query. And now if I ever am curious which queries have been used in workflows or plans, I can go to system queries. Here I see my plan query, group 1 in my cold data savings plan, and I can open it up and view it. I can't edit it because if I want to edit it, I would actually have to just go back to my plan and change the query there, since this is a read-only copy. And we do that so that you always have an immutable copy of the query you added to the plan, so that if you change that query later, the original copy is still there used in the plan. And likewise with workflows, I can see my query that I added to the workflow. All right. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we got a few questions. I think it's powerful, the showing that not only creating the query, but how you can use that query as your filter in different actions and actually take action on what you're finding. So the first one is about a system query. What is a system query? You mentioned that on the new landing page. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so these system queries are, they already existed in versions of Komprise before the Deep Analytics landing page within the pop-up. Here, they're a little bit easier to find because the pop-up has been turned into a whole page. this is essentially if I create a query in a plan, for example, as soon as I add this query to the plan, we save the exact version of the query right now to so that any changes made later to that query will not be reflected in this plan. So the copied version of this query, which is static, is the one that you see with the system queries. And that works with plan, it works with workflows, and in the future, it'll also work with bulk recall when we add the ability to recall based on a query.
And so in that pick list, you have user queries and system queries. Okay, that makes sense. The next question is about guardrails for deep analytics. Are there any guardrails you can put on deep analytics users? I don't want users to impact performance.
That's a good question. So there's a few guardrails universal guardrails that we have that you can set in sites and settings, global settings. So here we have some deep analytics controls, and here you can set limits on query results that can be tagged. So by default, we disable tagging of queries with no filters applied, since that, to make sure a user doesn't do that accidentally, because there's really no point in tagging, an entire data set, because, you're not gaining anything out of tagging every single files. You're not differentiating those files. And similarly, if you have a query with a large number of results, you can disable tagging. So in this case, our default is 10 million, which is very high, but you can tailor that to your organization. And since this is admin controlled within the settings UI, if you find a query that you want to tag which has more than whatever your default settings is, you can go ahead and change that if you're an admin. And if one of your users says, hey, I need to tag a larger data set, then you can change that temporarily for them and then change it back afterwards if you need to.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And is something else you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, so we don't, for role-based access for the tags themselves, we don't currently have, but it is a roadmap item.
We're going to come to that in a second. So one is some of my deep analytics queries are huge. How do I get a download of all my results?
That's a great question. So if I go to one of my queries, and this is demo data, so the results are simulated, but I can see here in my detailed list of files link a way to view the top files found, and top is by file size. So we order all the files by size and we show them in this list. And on the UI, you can see 1,000. You can download and you'll get a CSV for the top 10,000. And if you need more than that, then we have a script that we can give you, which will stream the results of all however million files you have in your query and to a designated location that you set up. So if we have had people ask, why do I only get 10,000? Because of backend limitations, we have to stream those results with a special script that we can provide to you if you need.
Okay. Another one is, I saw you introduce report scheduling. Does that require deep analytics? And maybe you can just show the scheduling so folks know where that is in reports.
Sure. So as of, I want to say 5.10 or 5.11, we have allowed the ability to schedule reports. So no, that does not require deep analytics. However, there are certain reports that require deep analytics, specifically the orphan data report and the potential duplicates report. We've also recently in 6.0 added the access time breakdown report. So if I want to schedule this, I go to the schedule tab, enable schedule. I configure how often I want to send it and the start date. So I'll pick, say I want to send it the 1st of every month. I'll set that up 9 a.m. and I won't put an end date. And I'll pick the email addresses that I want to send it to. I can add a comma separated list if I want, and I'll save that. So now the schedule's enabled. And I can do that for any of the reports that appear here. And as we add more and more reports to this tab, they'll be automatically schedulable.
Awesome. So let's go into, I know we're kind of towards the end of our presentation. It was a great demonstration. Thanks for all the questions. So let's go back and talk a little bit about some best practices. And I know you're going to talk a little bit about roadmap. So while you're doing that, I'm going to launch the poll question, if I can. And so let's talk about deep analytics best practices. And here goes the next poll.
Yeah, so we've found customers have a lot of success with the use case that I demonstrated, and there's different versions of it, but essentially you enlist users to explore their data and let them inform the tiering policies. Sometimes that's just querying and telling the admin which, what is safe to archive. And at a larger scale, it's letting them tag files and just putting the tags themselves into the plan. And that way you have user-driven tiering, and essentially they can continue to tag files whenever they want to. And they don't have to decide now, they can decide later what files they want to tag, and that will automatically be added to the plan and archived. And the way to really encourage them to do that is to implement a showback or a chargeback model. So for queries, you can define precise data sets and drive actions with those queries. And remember, you can select directories as part of your queries. So you can pick whatever specific projects you want to add to drive those actions. Similarly, you can tag, and the real advantage there is that with, you might have, you may want to act on a set of files which is too complex to be determined by a single query, or you want to change what that criteria is over time, and that's where tags really come in handy. And then lastly, you can use those queries and tags to curate your input data set to drive plan, workflows, and soon bulk recall.
Awesome. So the question we have here is, what would be the most impactful deep analytics roadmap features for you? And the options are: open a deep analytics query from Directory Explorer, send and schedule deep analytics query results, expanding the share-based and deep analytics user role to other product features, role-based access for tag management, or other. I want to talk to a product manager. So take a second to let us know your priorities, and let's go here, Jeremy. I'll do it to tell us what's new or what's coming.
So I gave some hints, but so one thing is the tag library user interface for centralized tag management. So it enables users to directly create and rename tags, and that's independent from applying them. So it can create your entire hierarchy and then just, say go and let your users tag based on that. And you can also delete tags, but only as an admin. Also, deep analytics actions for bulk recall. So you can define what files you want to recall based on a deep analytics query. So just like we did today with plan and with workflows, you can do that for recall in the near future. And because you can recall more granularly, you can tier more aggressively, and therefore you can save more money.
Awesome. Last chance on the poll. It looks like the two that are getting the votes right now are: number one is send and schedule deep analytics query results. Little tier from me on that one. I think that's important and will be impactful. And open the deep analytics query from Directory Explorer. So last chance. Take a second to give us your vote. And as you do that, I will just remind everybody that we want to schedule these monthly. So look for the next one coming up to be scheduled shortly after this. Let us know if you have topics you want to cover. You can send us an email at customersuccess@komprise.com. And all of these videos are on both our YouTube channel and on our website under komprise.com/techcrunch. Jeremy, any final thoughts or comments? I'll give you the last word on deep analytics and tagging.
Oh, no. Thanks everyone. And yeah, please contact us. We'd love to get feedback on not only what you want to hear from these webinars, but features that would be useful to you. We're definitely, we'd love to have a conversation with you about your use cases.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jeremy. Great session. And we look forward to the next one. Have a great day.
Thanks, Darren.